Today we're going to talk about this one, the Mamiya ZD, an old digital back from
2006.
You probably heard about this before. It's mostly mentioned about the version that's a DSLR camera where everything is kind of built together. The digital back and the DSLR is put together into one package. This is just a digital back, meaning you can use it on different cameras. First of all, why should you even experiment with these old medium format digital backs in modern times? For me, I was using APS-C and full frame cameras for many years, so I was kind of always a little bit curious, what about digital medium format? I tried the Fuji GFX cameras. If you follow me on my blog, you would know that I tried it and I sold it again. I think there's something lacking in that system, and I think it has something to do with the lenses, which are very clinical looking. I think they're designed to be used in a studio for product photography, those kind of things, where you need this kind of pixel peeper sharpness. For me, I look for a little bit more character. Also, the colors of the GFX, it was not the same charming colors you have on the Fuji X system. They were more like, a little bit more generic. I know you have the film simulation and all those things, but it was different, you know. So I sold that, and then I was still determined to try and see if I could find something that was some medium format option that could work for me. And the thing that actually got me hooked was this one here. The Kodak, I'm not sure you can see, Kodak Professional DCS Pro Back. This one is for the Mamiya AFD. This is a really, really old digital back. You can go to my blog. I have a full review of it there. This has really, really awesome colors. I think probably the best colors of any camera sensor. But it's really old and it's really clunky. So yeah, it's a pain in the ass to use. So I was a little bit interesting to see is something more modern. This is still from 2006, so it's not very modern, but it's more, I think a lot of things happen in those early digital photography years. With the Kodak one, it's like really a lot of weird, clunky things they came up with. With this Mamiya ZD, it's already a little bit more standardized. So I was willing to give this a shot. So as you probably already know, Mamiya was one of the big medium format camera producers back in the days, in the film days. And it's kind of normal that, of course, they would also give a shot at the digital medium photography. And this is their first shot at that. They also later came with a few others. And then I think in the end they got bought up by Phase One. But this is the first one they made. And like I mentioned, it comes in two models. There's one that's built in with the DSLR. So it's like kind of like a, I cannot fit in the camera, but so it's kind of like something like this, but it's much smaller and it's kind of melted together with the DSLR body. So it's actually a kind of a small digital medium format camera, at least for that time. And then there's just the digital back version. Same sensor on both of them. I actually first tried to get the DSLR camera, and of course the eBay seller I bought it from, he said that it was working, but actually it was not working, had a lot of issues. And then when I returned it, looking for another one, I also realized that there's so many of them that are for sale as broken, you know. And when you look into all the forum posts and stuff, you can just see these DSLR cameras, Mamiya ZD DSLR cameras, they're really prone to failure because it was something that was made for a short amount of time. Very few of them ever made. That made me just realize, hey, I'm just gonna get this one. I can just adopt it to some of the other cameras I have. This one is working for Mamiya AFD, which is this one we have here. This is actually the second one. And that's what it was designed for these kind of cameras. But then, like I mentioned, Phase One actually bought Mamiya, and I know it says Mamiya here, but that's because it was made in the transition period, but it is actually a Phase One camera. I know there's tape everywhere. It's because the finish on the outside is kind of peeling off, and I don't really have time to glue it all back on. This is the Phase One DF Plus. So it's like actually the most latest model you can get that actually adopts this Mamiya ZD, and also a lot of other digital backs. Which one of these should you get if you're getting the digital bag? I would say compatibility-wise, I think actually the Mamiya AFD is the one where it probably works the best, because that's the one it was designed for. The Phase 1 DF or DF Plus, they changed the protocol a little bit, so it's a little bit different with the timings and stuff when it sends those messages to the digital bag. But there is a compatibility option in the camera. If you go to custom functions, you can scroll through, and there's one called Mamiya ZD compatibility something. And if you enable that, then it works. It also works without that feature, but then you have to use leaf shutter lenses. At least that's what I found out. If I just use normal ones, it would give me this kind of... If I use the Mamiya AF lenses without turning on this compatibility thing, I would get this weird color cast in one side. But both of them work. Also, another feature is that the Phase 1 camera can adopt those modern Schneider lenses, which are a little bit more sharp, at least for some of them. Some of the lenses, especially the wide-angle lenses, they are more sharp on the Phase 1 than the older Mamiya lenses. And like I mentioned, this is the same sensor in both versions of the Mamiya ZD cameras. It has this 22 megapixel CCD sensor, which is all the hype right now with the CCD sensor trend. That's actually originally how I also found this camera, looking for CCD sensor cameras. Then it has a 38 times 36 millimeter sensor. So you can see here, it's quite large. It's not the largest you can get. You can actually, there's some Phase 1 and Hasselblad who have even larger, but it's close to the maximum you can get. It's larger than the Fuji GFX and the Hasselblad X system. Crop factor is 0.72. And ISO goes from 50 to 200, but you always want to use ISO 50 on those old digital bags. I think they actually just kind of boost up the lighting in post-processing, so it doesn't look very good. Then, as you can see here, it has... See if I can do it with only one hand. It has... I'm not sure if you can see. It has CF card and SD card slot, but the CF card is a lot faster. I think back in the day, SD cards were pretty slow compared to CF cards. And also, there's no problem with large card size and stuff like that. So I actually have a 32 gigabyte CF card in there. A lot of those old digital bags, they can only accept like 4 gigabytes, which is a pain in the ass. I have this Hasselblad camera where I have a bag of 4 gigabyte cards. Then it also has tethering through firmware somewhere. Also here, I think here. And like I mentioned, it supports those Mamiya and Phase 1 cameras. But I have also read that there's a model for Mamiya RC 67. So to test this out, I brought it on a trip to China. I was visiting my wife's family, and we also went to a little bit rural area, which could be pretty interesting photo-wise. And if you've been to China, if you've been to maybe a lot of Asian countries, and there's often a lot of colors, especially in China, there's a lot of red colors, of course, flags and stuff. And it was also Chinese New Year, so I have just seen on Flickr, and normally when I buy cameras, I go on Flickr and see how do the photos look, try to get an idea of how things look. And I could just see that the reds and the green were kind of very dominating in this sensor. That fits pretty well with the colors in China. So and that also turned out to be the case. I think it really fit China well. I think if I go to China another time, I will actually also use this as my main cityscape camera. I will say probably the colors that look the best on this is actually pink. I also saw some other people who shot some pictures where pink were very dominant, and that's actually the pictures look the best. So pink, if you have some pink subjects, then this is a camera for you. I will say it's not like, the colors are not very pretty. Like it's not, for example, I mentioned before, the Kodak digital back here. These colors are really pretty. I also think Fuji X system, the APS-C cameras also have really nice cameras, especially some of the earlier models. This is more like a little bit ugly colors, to be honest, but I think they kind of fit some situations, especially pretty colorful situations. And then I will also say this is a very, very sharp sensor. I think still today I was taking pictures with my Sony A7R3, sorry, together with this camera, and I think actually these look more sharp. I think if I did like pixel peeping, then the Sony might win, but I think it has this kind of pop to the images, might be this kind of medium format pop. I will also say that the Mamiya and Phase 1 lenses are really, really good. I think actually, if you are using Fuji GFX, try to adopt some of those lenses. I think, to my finding, those are the most sharp lenses I found. And I know, for example, Sigma lenses, they often have this very clinical sharp, where they actually have a tiny bit of character also. Here, if you can see here. Here I have my... This is a Mamiya. The 80mm is always really good on this system because that's a standard focal length. I'm not sure if I can get in focus. This is the Mamiya AF 80mm 2.8. That's a really great lens. It's super sharp in the middle and even wide open. And then there is also this one, which is a Phase 1 equivalent. I'm not sure if you can see the text anywhere, but it's also 80mm 2.8. So it's basically the equivalent, just an updated version. It's made from the Snyder, I forgot what they call it. I cannot pronounce the name, but it's a Phase 1 lens. How to put those on? Oops. Yeah. They are both the same sharpness in the center, I would say. But the Snyder lenses, even wide open, it's also sharp in the corners, which is pretty crazy. I would say go for the Mamiya, but yeah. But they're not too different. The Mamiya one you often just get for free when you buy a Mamiya FD camera. The Snyder ones you often have to pay a little bit, but they're also still pretty cheap. And then dynamic range. I think for such an old camera, it's actually very good dynamic range. I read somewhere some people speculate there's around 12 stops of dynamic range, which kind of matches my my findings. And it's actually so good you can do night night photography, night cityscape photography or something like that, where you have those super hard contrast, right? Or also shooting in the middle of the day, where you also you get both the shadows and you get both the highlight, even if you shoot in super harsh light. And I would say some of those older digital backs, for example, often the shadows are pretty shit on those, so that's not good for night photography. But this, it's pretty good. I think probably my Sony might have higher dynamic range, but it's at least very usable. And then also another thing is that when I open the photos in Lightroom or Camera Raw, whatever you use, Adobe, then they had this color tint. I actually think if you use Capture One, I figured out later, it's actually they look more sharp, the files there. And also the color tint didn't seem to be there. Of course, you can easily change the color tint with the color sliders, but just a trick. And then also small annoyance with this camera is that it's base ISO 50, which is like, there's no image stabilization or anything, and the lens is also a little bit longer. It's like the standard lens is 80mm, right? So that means if you shoot in like a little bit, blue hour, I think that's not possible, you know. You have to use a tripod, which I'm not a big fan of, but you have to do that. You have to use a tripod a lot with this camera. And then I also have one little trick here, which is because the screen is so small, it's very low resolution. It's good to use a histogram. I think I don't have any pictures on the camera now, but normally you press the display button, no images you can see. Then if you want to see the histogram, you hold down info and you press down, and then you get the histogram. It's a little bit hidden feature, so hold down info and press down. And then I have another trick here, which is that batteries, they are a little bit hard to come by today, at least the original ones. And of course, this is super old batteries, so the cells in them are almost dead by now. You still have a little bit of charge to them. Like I said, these ones, you might get a few when you buy the digital back, the original ones. Then there's some third-party ones. They're not very good. You can still buy them new, but I hear people say even the new ones don't hold much charge because they've probably been in a warehouse for the last 15 years now. Then, if you just want some more kind of old shitty batteries, so you have like a bag of batteries, then a good alternative is actually to, I have an old Konica Minolta 5D, and I figured out those batteries are exactly the same. And that camera, I actually bought it for like 10 euros or something with lenses, so you could probably like locally. So maybe that's a good idea, good place to get a few batteries, just an idea. And then I would like to ask you guys for a little bit of help. When I review these cameras, old cameras, I also try to look for the old firmware updates and software and stuff, and I couldn't find it for this one. Yeah, Mamiya got sold to Phase 1, and their website has been gone for a long time, so all the download links doesn't work, of course. I also tried on Internet Archive and look around, but I could see there was a firmware 1.10, and yeah, it would be great if someone have it somewhere. And then also there's some tethering software. If you're using the Firewire, which is, where is the Firewire? Here's this Firewire port. Someone shared the Windows version in the Flickr group forum for Mamiya ZD. That's great. I couldn't get it to work on Windows. I think often those Windows XP Firewire things, they often have very bad compatibility. On Mac, it's more like they often just kind of work, even though I'm not really a Mac guy, but that's my experience. So if someone have the old Mac version of this Mamiya, what is it called? Mamiya Capturing Studio. Let me see. Mamiya Digital Photo Studio. If someone have those old CDs or something, then please share it with me, and I'll share it on my blog. So, should you get this? Is it really worth getting in 2024? I think yes and no. If you, first of all, if you are new to cameras and photography, don't get this. Don't buy it. It's a super niche product, and you can probably only use it for very limited things. If you are a little bit of a nerdy photographer who have maybe tried a lot of things, who are looking for something different, then I think, yes, I actually think this is a very cool camera. Like I mentioned, I brought it to China, and I think actually I'll bring it next time I go there again, or some other very colorful places. The colors are not necessarily beautiful, like I also mentioned, but in some cases they really stand out. I also really like how the highlights kind of fade into, it's not like just, yeah, I really like how the highlights look, strong highlights on this camera actually. And I also mentioned it's very sharp images. I've actually been through quite a few digital medium format cameras now, or digital backs. And this one, together with Kodak, that I also mentioned, they're actually my two favorite digital medium format options. I also tried a few other ones. For example, one of them, let me see if I can find it, is this Hasselblad. This is actually the X2D, and this is a 22 megapixel version. I also tried the one that's what is it called, 39 megapixel. I will say it's not really me. I mean, it actually looks very modern in a way, but it's not very sharp. And like I mentioned, the colors actually look like a lot of other modern cameras. I'm looking for something a little bit different, so I think if you just want, yeah, averagely sharp images and average colors, that you get from a lot of other cameras. Why pick this? So I'm looking for something a little bit special. I also recently got the Phase 1 P45 Plus. I actually heard a lot of people say, oh, that one has really great colors. But yeah, to me, it just looks super average, those colors. It reminds me like from the colors from so many of those a little bit smaller brands where they don't seem to really have any color signs or whatever you call it, where they just kind of read out the pixels from the camera and that's it. But sharp images, I would say very sharp images. Of course, there's also way newer Phase 1 digital backs, but I think it's probably the same. If you have to, it's probably not better at least. Then I also tried the Leaf Aptus 22. Actually, a little bit better colors. It reminded me a little bit of like Canon colors. I think it was used for portraits. That's kind of what it was known for. And then it probably makes sense. It kind of mimicked the colors from Canon. But actually, mostly maybe the most unsharp sensor of all of them. So not really for me. I think I want some of that sharpness and pop if I use medium format, right? And of course, like I mentioned, I also use Fujifilm GFX. And like I also mentioned in the beginning, it's very, those lenses, at least I tried from Fuji, they have this very clinical look. And like I also mentioned, the colors are not as good as other Fujifilm cameras. So yeah, you can hate me in the comments, but I actually think GFX is a little bit, I don't think it's for hobby photographers, or I think it's more like meant for studio work, where it doesn't matter those two factors. Anyways, back to Mamiya ZD. Is it worth it? Like I mentioned, it's a niche product. I'm gonna keep mine. I would love to hear if some of you have tried this one, or if you tried the DSLR version, and what you think about it. I also will put this link to my blog post where I go a little bit more into detail with some of the things that I mentioned here. And in that blog post, I'll also keep that updated if I find some new things. But in that blog post, I also put a download link to a lot of pictures I post there, so you can go to some raw files in a zip file I make, and you can download that one. You can play around with the raw files, and you can see for yourself. I always think that's the best thing you can do if you're gonna buy a camera. Get some raw files and play a little bit around with them. Then you often have a good impression of what you're gonna get before you actually buy it. So yeah, that's it, guys. See you another time.